Maya Chen never imagined that a simple date at a cheap cafe in Chicago could turn her life upside down, but that's exactly what happened on that cold October afternoon when she decided to allow herself something that felt impossible, being seen as an ordinary person, not just the nanny. At 28, Maya carried the invisible weight of someone who had always had to prove she deserved to be in certain places. The daughter of immigrants, working hard, taking care of rich families' children, she was used to being treated like furniture, present but ignored, useful but disposable. That afternoon, gathering all the courage she had, Maya agreed to go out with Evan, a teacher she'd met online. The place? A simple cafe near the subway? Nothing fancy. Nothing that required her to pretend to be someone she wasn't, or at least that's what she hoped. But what should have been a quiet, easy date turned into a public nightmare when a group of women at the table next to hers started humiliating her openly, making cruel comments about her clothes, her job, her life. And worse, Evan, the man who was supposed to be by her side, froze. He said nothing, did nothing. Maya was about to run out, swallowing the humiliation and the tears, when she noticed something. There was a man watching everything from a table in the back, a well-dressed businessman with eyes that seemed to see beyond appearances. What he did next shocked the entire cafe, and it changed forever the way Maya saw herself. This is the story of a simple gesture that revealed deep truths about dignity, respect, and what really matters when no one is watching, or rather when someone finally chooses to truly see. Chicago's cold had that sneaky way of creeping straight into your bones, especially in the late October afternoons when the sun was already sinking behind glass and concrete buildings. Maya Chen held the strap of her worn-out bag as she walked down Clark Street, watching her blurred reflection in storefront windows. 28 years old, black hair pulled into a simple ponytail, a denim jacket that had already survived 3 winters. Nothing about her screamed for attention. The cafe was 2 blocks from the Red Line subway station, one of those places that lived off other people's hurry. Paper cups, uncomfortable chairs, a sticky, laminated menu. Downtown Brew didn't pretend to be charming, but it was cheap, central, and anonymous enough for a first date she still wasn't sure she should have agreed to. Maya pushed the glass door open and was hit by the smell of reheated coffee mixed with damp steam. The place was in rush hour mode, executives taking their last sip before catching a train, students glued to laptops with headphones on, a couple whisper arguing near the window. She chose a small table in the back, away from the cold draft that rushed in every time someone opened the door. She sat down slowly, adjusting her bag on her lap like it was a shield, and pulled out her phone. 5:43 p.m. Evan had said he'd arrive at 6. 17 minutes to try to look natural, to pretend her stomach wasn't in knots, to convince herself it wasn't ridiculous for a nanny to be there, trying to have a life beyond other people's children. On the scratched formica table sat a little holder with paper napkins. Maya grabbed one absent-mindedly and noticed, printed in the center in faded red ink, was a small heart. Simple, almost childish, like the drawings Sophie, the 4-year-old girl she cared for, made with crayons. She ran her fingers over the drawing, smoothing the edges of the thin paper, and felt that familiar tightness in her chest. The same feeling she got every time she walked into a place where people looked at her and decided, in seconds, who she was. Not by her intelligence, not by the way she cared for children with real attention, not by how she could make Sophie fall asleep by singing in Mandarin, the language her grandmother had taught her. People saw the invisible uniform she carried, simple clothes, an old bag, the hesitation of someone who couldn't afford to make mistakes because she had no safety net. Wherever she went, Maya felt like people saw class before they saw a human being, and that hurt in a way she couldn't quite explain. Evan had seemed different, at least in the messages. They'd met through an app. She'd created the profile on a sleepless night after Sophie's mother made a sharp comment about people who don't have a life of their own. Evan was an assistant history teacher at a public school on the South Side. In their messages, he seemed kind, curious, genuinely interested. When she mentioned she worked as a nanny, he didn't brush it off. He said he thought the job was noble. And Maya, tired of being invisible, allowed herself to believe him. She smoothed the napkin again. That silly heart was almost a joke. As if love could really be that simple. A red line on cheap paper, handed out without ceremony to anyone. The door opened and a woman in high heels and an expensive wool coat walked in with two friends, all of them laughing loudly. They sat at a table near the window, the one with the better lighting, and started ordering without even looking at the menu. They had that confidence of people who'd never had to check prices before choosing. Maya lowered her eyes and went back to smoothing the napkin. 6 o'clock. Evan was late. She took a deep breath, feeling the cold air burn her throat, and tried to convince herself it was fine, that he would show up, that she deserved to be there, that maybe someone could look at her and see more than a poor nanny in a cheap cafe. But deep in her chest, right there where the napkin with the heart rested on the table, Maya could already feel the weight of doubt. 6:08. The door opened again. A tall man, glasses, brown jacket. Evan. He saw her and waved, but there was something on his face, a hesitation, almost regret, that made Maya's stomach sink even further. Evan paused for a second by the door, like he was recalculating the decision to come. Maya forced a smile and waved back, her heart beating out of sync. He crossed the cafe in quick steps, nearly tripping over a backpack left on the floor, and finally reached the table. "Hi! Sorry I'm late. The train was delayed," he said, taking off his jacket and hanging it on the back of the chair. His voice was friendly, but his eyes avoided hers for a little too long. "It's okay, I just got here too," Maya lied, slipping her phone back into her bag. Evan sat down and grabbed the menu, flipping through it nervously. He looked exactly like his photos. Messy brown hair, thin-framed glasses, a genuine friendliness that seemed to be fighting his own insecurity. He wore a worn flannel shirt and sneakers that had seen better days. Maya relaxed a little. At least he wasn't pretending to be someone he wasn't. "So, do you come here often?" he asked, then immediately winced. "Sorry, that was such a cliché question." Maya laughed softly and the tension began to ease. "No, actually, it's my first time. You're the one who suggested the place." "Oh, right." Evan scratched the back of his neck, embarrassed. "I just thought that, well, it's close to the subway for both of us. And the coffee's honest. Nothing pretentious." "I like it," Maya said, and she meant it. There was something comforting about being somewhere that didn't demand she pretend to be anyone else. They ordered a black coffee for him, a small cappuccino for her, and they shared a blueberry muffin that looked like it had been baked sometime last week. The conversation started slowly, with the caution of someone walking on thin ice. Evan talked about his students, about how hard it was to teach history to teenagers who thought everything important had already happened before they were born. Maya talked about Sophie, about how the girl insisted on making up wild stories about warrior princesses who saved dragons instead of being saved by them. For a few minutes, Maya managed to forget where she was, managed to feel normal, until a sharp voice cut in from the table next to them. "Seriously, Jenna? You brought us to this place? It looks like a homeless shelter." Maya froze. It was the woman in the expensive wool coat, now sitting with her friends at a table that Maya realized too late was almost right next to hers. The so-called Jenna rolled her eyes, amused, and answered loudly enough for the whole cafe to hear. "Relax, Amanda. It's vintage, you know, like authentic. And just look at the clientele." Amanda's eyes swept the room with theatrical disdain and landed on Maya. The smile that formed on her lips was cruel, calculated, really authentic. "Look over there, even a nanny out on a date. How cute." Her voice dripped with sarcasm. The friends laughed. Not loudly, but loud enough for nearby tables to start paying attention. Maya felt her face burn, blood rushing to her cheeks. She clenched the napkin with the heart between her fingers, crumpling the paper. Evan blinked, confused. What did she say?" "Nothing," Maya murmured, lowering her eyes. "Just ignore it." But Amanda didn't ignore it. "No, seriously, guys, look at her clothes. I bet she ordered the cheapest coffee on the menu and is still going to split the bill." Amanda leaned toward her friend and whispered loudly, on purpose, "These people always try to look like something they're not. So embarrassing." The barista behind the counter heard it, but pretended not to. Evan turned red, but said nothing. The words seemed stuck in his throat, fighting to get out and failing miserably. Maya wanted to disappear, wanted to stand up and run out, but her legs wouldn't move. Instead, she forced a smile, as if laughing at herself hurt less than letting others laugh at her. "It's okay, Evan. She's just being an idiot." But it wasn't okay. And Evan knew it, and his silence hurt more than any insult ever could. That's when Maya noticed. A man was sitting alone at a table in the back. A low-key suit, but unmistakably expensive. He wasn't on his phone, wasn't reading anything. He was just watching, and his eyes were locked on her. Daniel Westwood didn't usually set foot in cheap cafes. Honestly, he didn't usually do cafes at all. His day normally ran between meeting rooms with a view of Lake Michigan, Michelin star restaurants, and the controlled silence of his Gold Coast apartment. But today, he'd canceled his driver and decided to walk. Sometimes planned solitude was more honest than paid company. He was there by chance, or maybe out of pure exhaustion. He'd ordered a simple Americano and sat in the most discreet corner of downtown Brew, away from the windows, away from people's eyes. He just wanted 30 minutes of anonymity before going back to the world where every move he made was analyzed, criticized, priced. And then he saw it. He saw the girl in the denim jacket crushing a napkin between her fingers. He saw the guy beside her shrinking into his chair, incapable of reacting. He saw the group of women at the next table turning cruelty into entertainment. And most of all, he saw what no one else seemed to see, the quiet dignity of someone who was way too used to apologizing for existing. Daniel knew that look. He'd seen it in his own mother's eyes years ago when she cleaned houses to pay the bills while he studied on a full scholarship. He'd seen it in the mirror when he was just another immigrant trying to prove he deserved to be in the room. And now he saw it in the girl who was trying to disappear inside her own skin. He didn't move right away. He watched. Amanda kept going with the nasty comments now, making a point of talking about people who don't know their place. The barista wiped down the counter with exaggerated focus, refusing to get involved. Evan fidgeted with his phone, clearly wishing he could be anywhere else. And Maya, because Daniel had already decided to learn her name, just kept breathing, smoothing that damn napkin like it was some kind of charm against humiliation. That's when she started gathering her things, getting ready to leave before she broke down, and Daniel decided. He stood up calmly, picked up his cup, and walked toward Maya's table. Not rushed, not dramatic, just someone crossing a cafe. But there was something in his posture, the way he took up space, the quiet confidence of someone who had never had to prove anything to anyone, that made the noise around them soften. "Excuse me," he said, stopping beside the table. His voice was low, but clear. "Sorry to interrupt." Maya looked up, startled. Evan looked even more lost. Daniel smiled, a small, genuine smile, and looked straight at Maya. "You dropped this," he said, holding out a clean napkin. It was a lie, obviously, but it was also a gesture, a bridge. Maya blinked, confused, and took the napkin automatically. Thank you?" Daniel nodded, and instead of walking away, he pulled an empty chair from another table and sat down. Not at their table, but close enough to shift the entire dynamic in the room. He wasn't rescuing them. He was offering presence. "First time here?" he asked casually, like this was the most normal conversation in the world. Maya hesitated. "Yeah. And you?" "Same." He glanced around. "Feels honest. No fake little frills." He took a sip of his coffee and made a face. "Although the coffee is awful." Maya let out a small laugh before she could stop herself. Evan finally lifted his eyes from his phone, watching the scene with a mix of relief and confusion. At the table next to them, Amanda had gone quiet. Daniel didn't even need to look at her. His presence alone, the clean cut of his clothes, the understated but unmistakably expensive watch, the posture of someone used to being listened to, had changed the temperature of the place. "You two on a date?" Daniel asked, and there was something almost fatherly in his tone, like he was genuinely interested. "Yes," Maya said, still cautious. "First date. Hope it's going well," he said, and then he looked at Evan with a gentle intensity that made the guy sit up straighter. "Places like this have a soul. Not everyone knows how to see that." Evan swallowed hard and nodded. Daniel stayed for 3 more minutes. He didn't say anything deep, didn't give some speech. He just talked, asked about the muffin, joked about the cold rolling in, mentioned he was thinking about walking to the park before it got fully dark. Small stuff, normal stuff. But the way he looked at Maya, with respect, with attention, like he saw a whole person and not a social category, created a tiny bubble of humanity in the middle of all that noise. When he finally stood to leave, he lightly touched Maya's shoulder. "Nice meeting you both. Enjoy your night." And then he walked out, leaving Maya holding 2 napkins, the crumpled one with the red heart, and the clean one he'd handed her. Evan stared at her, finally finding his voice. Who was that guy? Maya shook her head, still trying to process it, but something inside her had shifted. She couldn't explain it, but for the first time that night, she didn't feel small. Then Amanda spoke again, louder now, sharper, more poisonous. Guys, did you see that? Even a stranger feels sorry for her. And that's when everything started to really fall apart. Maya felt anger rise up her throat like hot lava. It wasn't just Amanda's comment, it was everything. Years of being treated like furniture, like someone who didn't deserve eye contact, the way Evan had shrunk instead of defending her, the barista pretending not to hear, the whole world saying, in subtle ways and not so subtle ways, that she didn't belong. She stood up so fast she knocked over her empty cup. The sound made heads turn. Maya, wait, Evan whispered, reaching out but with no real strength in his voice. No, she said, and the word came out firmer than she expected. I'm not waiting. I'm not sitting here listening to this. Amanda exchanged satisfied looks with her friends. Hit a nerve, huh? Look, sweetie, don't take it personal. It's just, there are places for each kind of person, you know? Maya turned to her, trembling. And what kind of person do you think I am? Oh, please. The kind who shows up places in a uniform and pretends Pretends what? Maya cut in. Pretends I'm human. That I deserve respect? The entire cafe went silent. Even the barista had stopped pretending to wipe down the counter. Amanda opened her mouth to answer, but another voice sliced through the air first. She does. Everyone turned. Daniel was back. He stood near the counter, but somehow his presence filled the whole room. He wasn't in gentle stranger mode anymore. There was something different in his eyes now. Recognition. Resolve. He walked toward Maya's table slowly, and when he spoke, his voice was calm, but it carried the weight of someone used to being obeyed. Maya Chen, right? Maya blinked, confused. How do you know my name? Daniel exhaled and ran a hand through his hair like he was deciding how much to reveal. I know the Rothbergs, Sarah and Jonathan. You take care of their daughter, Sophie. The floor seemed to shift under Maya's feet. Sarah Rothberg, the woman she'd worked for 2 years. The woman who never called her by her full name, just the nanny. The woman whose husband was a partner at an investment firm. You know them? I do. Daniel nodded. Jonathan and I do business together. Actually, I was at their place last week for dinner. You were in the kitchen with Sophie, teaching her how to fold those origami shapes. Maya remembered. She'd stayed late because Sarah had a party and didn't want her daughter getting in the way of the guests. She'd seen men in suits moving through the living room, heard muffled laughter, but nobody had come into the kitchen. Nobody had seen her, except someone had. You were so patient with her, Daniel continued. Sophie was getting frustrated because the paper kept tearing. You made that little bird 3 times until she got it, and when she finally did, you celebrated like it was the most important thing in the world. Maya's eyes burned. She was so proud. I saw it. Daniel's jaw tightened. And I also saw Sarah walk past the doorway, glance at the two of you, and roll her eyes like care was an inconvenience. Daniel paused. You're good at what you do, Maya. Competent, ethical, careful. Sophie adores you. I heard her talking about you to her dad. But nobody in that house really sees you. Amanda was quiet now, but the superior little smile was still stuck on her face. Okay, that's touching. But what's your point? She's still... What? Daniel turned to her, ice in his voice. A nanny? A woman who earns an honest living taking care of other people's kids while their moms are too busy posting yoga pics on Instagram? Jenna choked. Amanda went pale. Daniel looked back at Maya. You came here today even though you don't have money to spare because you wanted to allow yourself something normal. A date. A chance to be seen as a person, not as staff. I get that more than you think. How do you know that? Maya asked, her voice cracking. Because I used to be you. He swallowed. Not exactly, but close enough. My mother cleaned houses. I grew up hearing that people like us don't deserve to sit at the table. Only serve it. He took a slow breath. Now I can sit at any table I want, but that doesn't make me forget what it feels like to be treated like you don't exist. Evan finally spoke, his voice small. I should have said something. I just froze. Daniel looked at him, and there was disappointment there, but also understanding. You froze because you were afraid of being judged too. Afraid that being associated with her would make you a target too. It's cowardly, but it's human. Evan lowered his head, ashamed. Maya was shaking, gripping the 2 napkins tightly. Amanda stood up, grabbing her purse. We're leaving. This place just keeps getting worse. But Daniel wasn't finished. You are leaving, yes. But before you do, I want everyone here to understand something. He looked around the cafe, his voice rising just enough to reach every table. Honest work is not shameful. It never has been. And if anyone here thinks treating another person like trash just because they earn less is acceptable, he paused, letting the silence press down. The problem isn't her. The silence that followed was thick, almost suffocating. Amanda stood frozen for a second, her face red with anger and humiliation, before digging her phone out of her bag. Her fingers flew across the screen with calculated fury. You know what? I'm going to document this. I'm going to show everyone the kind of people who hang out in this place. She raised the phone, pointing the camera straight at Maya. Smile, sweetheart. You're about to get famous. Maya instinctively stepped back, covering her face with her hand. Panic rushed up her chest like icy water. She'd seen this before. Videos going viral, people being exposed, judged, destroyed by millions of strangers who decided who deserved empathy and who deserved mockery. Stop it! Evan finally stood up, his voice shaky but present. You don't have the right to… I do, actually. This is a public space. Free speech. Ever heard of it? Amanda kept filming, now adding dramatic narration. Look at this, everyone. I came here to have a quiet coffee, and some bitter nanny started making a scene because she can't handle the truth. And now there's some random rich guy playing knight in shining armor. How embarrassing. Jenna, standing beside her, looked visibly uncomfortable. Amanda, stop. You're taking this too far. Too far? She's the one who came into my space with that victim attitude. Your space? Daniel's voice cut through the air like a blade. He stepped forward, positioning himself between the camera and Maya. Put the phone down. Now. Amanda laughed, nervous but defiant. Or what? You're going to sue me? Call the cops? Oh, please, we're just publicly humiliating someone and recording them without consent for online exposure, which qualifies as harassment and can have legal consequences depending on how that footage is used. Daniel didn't raise his voice, but every word landed with the precision of someone who knew exactly what he was talking about. So yes, I can sue you. And I will, if you don't delete that right now. The cafe manager finally appeared, a middle-aged man with a stained apron and a tired expression. Hey, what's going on here? You're disturbing other customers. The problem, Daniel said, turning to him, is that you have staff or policies that allow customers to be verbally attacked and humiliated inside your establishment. And you did nothing. The manager blinked, lost. I didn't hear anything. You did. You chose to ignore it. Daniel pulled a card from his pocket and handed it to him. Daniel Westwood, Westwood Capital. I'd like to file a formal complaint against this customer's behavior, he pointed at Amanda, and against your establishment's failure to ensure a respectful environment. The manager looked at the card, and Maya saw the exact moment he recognized the name. His face went pale. Mr. Westwood, we do not tolerate that kind of behavior, I assure you. Then act like it. Ask her to delete the video and leave, or I guarantee this place will be subjected to a very thorough review of its practices. Amanda scoffed, but her confidence was cracking. You can't kick me out. I'm a paying customer. And you're violating the establishment's code of conduct. The manager, now visibly nervous, turned to her. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to delete the video and leave, please. This is ridiculous. All because of a crying nanny and a… Now, the manager repeated, desperation finally turning into firmness. Amanda looked around and realized everyone in the cafe was staring at her now, not with approval, but with the same discomfort you feel when watching someone cross a line they shouldn't. Jenna was already standing, grabbing her purse, clearly wanting distance. The third friend had her face buried in her phone, pretending not to exist. Fine. You all deserve each other. Amanda deleted the video with sharp, angry gestures, threw some bills on the table, and stormed out, followed by her friends who barely waited for her to finish. The door slammed. The cafe exhaled. Maya was shaking, not from fear, but from something she couldn't quite name. Anger, exhaustion, relief, all tangled together. She looked at Daniel, who was still standing between her and where Amanda had been, like his body itself was a shield. You didn't have to do that, she whispered. Daniel turned to her, his eyes tired but kind. I did, because no one else was going to. Evan was pale, staring at his own hands. I should have. From the start, I should have. You should have, Daniel agreed without cruelty. But you still can, starting now. Maya sat back down, her legs giving out. The napkin with the heart was crumpled, nearly destroyed, but she was still holding it. The manager approached, swallowing hard. Miss, I'm very sorry about the incident. Please accept what you ordered on the house. And if there's anything else I can do— There is, Daniel interrupted, sitting beside Maya without asking. Bring her a decent coffee, and one for me, too. As the manager rushed back to the counter, Daniel looked at Maya. You were about to leave before breaking down, weren't you? Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. Then you're not leaving. Not today. He gently took the crumpled napkin from her hand and smoothed it out on the table like he was restoring something precious. You stay, head held high, because this place, this city, this world— he paused, choosing his words carefully— doesn't belong to people like Amanda. It belongs to people who have the courage to show up, even when it's hard. And for the first time that terrible night, Maya felt something crack inside her. Not her dignity, her fear. But she still didn't know if Daniel was finished, and by the look in his eyes, she suspected he wasn't. The new coffee arrived, steaming, in real ceramic cups, not the usual disposable ones. The manager brought them personally, his hands shaking slightly, and retreated before anyone could say anything. Maya watched the steam rise in lazy spirals, hypnotic, and realized her own hands had stopped shaking. Daniel took a sip and grimaced. Still terrible, but at least it's hot. Maya let out a rough laugh, half sob, half relief. Evan was still sitting there, staring at the table like the scratched formica might offer answers. I ruined everything, he said finally, guilt weighing down his voice. You deserved someone who did something, and I just sat there frozen like an idiot. Maya looked at him, really looked. She saw a scared, insecure man, but not a bad one, just human. Weak in the moment she needed strength, but human. You're not required to be a hero, she said, her words softer than she expected. But I can't be with you if you can't stand beside me. Do you understand? Evan nodded slowly, swallowing hard. I do, and I'm truly sorry. He stood up, grabbed his jacket. Before leaving, he stopped beside the table and looked at Maya one last time. You deserve someone better than who I was today. I hope you find that. Then he was gone, leaving Maya and Daniel alone at a back table in a cheap Chicago cafe with 2 bad coffees and a pile of napkins between them. Daniel rotated his cup slowly in his hands, thoughtful. You know this wasn't about you, right? Amanda, Evan freezing. None of it. It was about them, their fears, their insecurities, their need to feel superior by stepping on someone else. I know, Maya said, and she meant it. But knowing doesn't make it hurt less. No. It doesn't. Daniel took a deep breath. But it can change how you respond next time. He pulled another card from his pocket, but this time he wrote something on the back before handing it to Maya. My personal number. This isn't about a job, and it's not charity. It's because I know people, serious people, who value competence and character, and you have both. Maya took the card, feeling its weight. Not the paper, but what it represented. A door. Maybe. A possibility. I don't want to feel like you're saving me, she said. I'm not saving anyone. You saved yourself the moment you decided to show up today, knowing the world might judge you. I'm just opening a conversation. He paused. I have a friend. She's the director of a Montessori school in Lincoln Park. She's looking for real educators, not just babysitters. Good pay, benefits, respectful environment. If you want, I'll make the introduction. No pressure. Maya felt her eyes burn again, but this time it wasn't shame. It was something dangerously close to hope. Why are you doing this? She asked. Daniel smiled. A sad, honest smile. Because no one did it for my mother, and I spent my whole life wishing someone had. So now I do it when I can. Not out of pity, out of justice. He stood up, straightening his jacket. But before leaving, he leaned in and picked up the napkin with the heart, the one Maya had smoothed so much the paper was almost translucent, and handed it back to her. Keep this, not as a reminder of what happened today, but as a reminder that you stayed, head held high, even when it was hard. Maya took the napkin, now perfectly smooth, and folded it carefully, placing it inside her bag, along with Daniel's card. "Thank you," she said, and the word felt far too small to carry everything she felt. "Don't thank me. Just call me when you're ready." Daniel walked out the door, and the cold Chicago night slipped in with him for a second before the door closed again. Maya stayed alone at the back table with a cold cup of coffee and a strange feeling in her chest. Not victory, because there had been no battle, but recognition, being seen, mattering. She looked around. People had gone back to their conversations, their phones, their lives. The manager wiped down the counter with renewed enthusiasm. Everything looked the same, but something had changed. Or maybe she had. Maya finished the coffee, which really was awful, and stood up. She grabbed her bag, adjusted her jacket, and walked toward the door with her spine straight, shoulders back. Not because she was pretending to be confident, but because, for the first time in a long while, she wasn't apologizing for taking up space. Outside, the Chicago cold greeted her with its sharp embrace. City lights flickered against the dark sky. The subway roared in the distance, and Maya Chen, Nanny, daughter of immigrants, woman the world kept trying to make invisible, walked down Clark Street with her head held high, because she had learned something essential that night. Respect is not begged for. It's not negotiated. It's not earned by proving you're good enough. Respect is demanded, simply by existing. And Maya existed. In her jacket pocket, the napkin with the heart rested neatly folded, no longer a symbol of fragility, but proof of resilience. She didn't know if she would call Daniel. She didn't know if the disastrous date had been worth it. She didn't know what would come next, but she knew with absolute certainty that she would never again let anyone make her feel small. And that, she thought as she descended the subway steps, was more than enough for today. Maya's story ends here, but the reflection it leaves behind echoes far beyond that cafe in Chicago. How many times have you felt invisible? How many times have you been judged by your appearance, your job, your bank balance, before you ever had the chance to show who you really are? And how many times did you have the courage to stay, head held high, even when everything around you told you that you didn't belong? Maya teaches us something fundamental. Respect is not a favor we ask of others. It's a right we claim simply by existing. And when someone tries to take that from us, the most powerful choice we can make is not to disappear. It's to stay. It's to take up the space that is rightfully ours. Daniel didn't save Maya. He simply did what all of us should do. See the human being behind the stereotype. Offer presence when the world offers indifference. Act when it would be easier to look away. And you? Have you ever been the Daniel in someone else's story? Or maybe you're the Maya right now, fighting to be seen, to be respected, to prove you deserve dignity. If this story touched you in any way, leave a comment and share. When was the moment someone made you feel invisible? Or better yet, when did you decide you would never disappear again? Share this video with someone who needs to hear that they are seen, that they are valued, that they matter. Because stories like Maya's happen every single day, in cafes, offices, streets, schools, and the more we talk about them, the harder it becomes for the world to keep pretending it doesn't see. Subscribe to the channel for more real stories that touch the heart and make you think. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next videos. And remember, you don't need to beg for respect. You just need to exist, with dignity, with courage, with your head held high. Until the next story.